But yes, we are live at the Sustainable Energy Conference here in Olkaria. Yes. The cold, now my brain is thawing.
Actually, it's melting.
It's melting kidogo. But it's exciting. I mean, in the heart and with stakeholders who we are seated with here at this baraza to really not just talk about rural electrification, but just about energy, about the future of electrifying our country and making sure that the last mile is achieved, that we light up every home, by 2030. It's quite a big task, but we are joined by various stakeholders who are really critical in this ecosystem, including EPRA, Ketraco, Kengen, and more. And we'll get into the conversation with them and even talk about what we're taking from this conference today. It's been 3 days, policymakers, stakeholders, government. What are we leaving with today? And what does it say for the future of our country? So thank you all so much for being with us. My first thing is, I know we just had a very nice story about women in STEM. So Mariam and I are the token.
Where are the women?
Where are they?
In renewable energy.
Renewable energy.
He says Gloria is right
We
here.
also have somebody in advocacy.
She's Gloria the Grid Master.
Nice.
Gloria the Grid Master.
Yes.
Yes. She's a woman in STEM for sure, and a girl in renewable energy.
Yes.
He'll tell us a little bit more about that. That's Calvin.
Yeah, I think so. Of course, we're also again joined by engineer who we just had for the last hour on fixing the nation. But I would actually want to start with you. Let's just break down advocacy-wise before we come back to all of our stakeholders here. A little bit more about why you think it's so important to translate everything we're talking about here for children to understand.
Thank you, Janet. My name is Calvin Njudi. I work for Ketraco and corporate communication. I'm also a PhD candidate. I just did my PhD in Beijing. I'll be graduating next year. All right. Thank you. Should I repeat that? Or we? Okay, so my name, once again, Calvin Njudi from Ketraco, corporate communication. I am also a PhD candidate. Did my PhD in Beijing through the MOFCOM scholarship. But now we're here to talk about energy. And you asked about why the need to talk to kids about energy. So in my experience in Ketraco and obviously with Kengen and all the other players, what I've realized is that we have a lot of kids who want to be engineers, a lot of kids who want to know what we do, but they don't really know how electricity gets to them. So for me personally, I started with animation. I have a little bit of some background in animation. I did animation, and so when I came to Ketraco, I said, let's simplify this message to the younger generation. So we started with a very simple 1-minute animation, and through that animation, that's where we came up with this thing where you hear Kengen generates, Ketraco transmits, KPLC distributes, and you consume. So we simplified it that way. So then after that, now people are asking, so what does GDC do? What does Kengen do? So we have to break that down. So GDC, you find that for them it's drilling and exploration. Then Kengen,
what is GDP?
GDC is Geothermal Development Corporation. So people ask, what's the difference between GDC and Kengen? Because Kengen also does the Olkarias. So to just break down that to the kids and to make them understand what the different players do was important. So after that, then I realized we should actually simplify it further in storybooks. So then I came up with Gloria, the Grid Master. So this is a child who wants to become an engineer, doesn't really understand everything about how engineering works, but then we simplify it for her through visits to the power stations. So we go to Kengen and GDC, and she meets an engineer there called Mr. High Voltage, who is also with a person from Kengen. So Mr. High Voltage now takes the story from Kengen, what Kengen does, through what Ketraco does in transmission, to Kenya Power in the distribution, and to the houses. And now the next series of this book will be the appliances, and what level, what capacity do you require? TV inakula ngapi, simu inakula ngapi. So we are doing the next one, and it's going to be a partnership between, again, Ketraco, Kengen, and the other players. So that's really the story about this book and how we want to simplify this story of energy to the younger generation.
Beautiful. Can you get all of them to support you on this? All those agencies. Yeah. When I was growing up, Kenya Power used to have that thing called ready kilowatts. And the car parker like this and steamer. And that's what we used to know. Steamer, ready kilowatt. But now it was the only thing. It was Kenya Power generating and distributing and selling. Now you have all those. You have Geothermal Development Corporation that's doing the exploration, and like you've said, including REREC, that's involved in renewable and rural electrification. So I think that's a brilliant way of actually telling the story.
It is very important. And I wonder, I think, as we talk about voices, and I know Engineer Sugar joined us and we talked about rural electrification. We talked about uptake even in rural communities. I wonder what voices are missing in shaping electrification planning that maybe we can speak to. We can start with you, because it's one thing to be able to be the ones who are creating this access. But there's a planning that comes from voices that might be missing in this, whether it's grassroots voices, it could be other voices. If anyone can just speak to, what voices do you think need to be heard more when it comes to electrification planning?
Well, maybe I could start and then I let them continue. I think the voice, like the guy from the tech industry, now we have AI coming up. You go to the US, you go to China where I was, they're spending a lot of money in terms of building power plants that will be used specifically for AI. As you know, AI is going to consume a lot of electricity. But the problem in Kenya is that I think our adoption in terms of energy and putting these guys from the tech side when it comes to planning, I think that's a voice that is missing. And then the kids, again, when we're doing all these things, we're doing it for the future. And these kids, they know what they want in the future. You look at Gen Zs and how they want to do their business. It's, I think most of them, a big percentage want to work from the home or, just from the comfort of their screens back at home. So I think that's a voice that we also need to put in as we do our policies. But I'll also let my colleagues...
Anthony Komen is with Agile Business Solutions. And you're there, you're dealing with tech, like he's just said. So tell us, what is it that you do? We can see these are generators and distributors of power. You're in the private sector.
Just to say a bit of what we do. We're a technology company founded here in Kenya with interest in a couple of industries, among them the energy sector. So tech has really revolutionized the world. And just to break it down, Ketraco needs a smart grid that is able to control its network and load balance and all that. All that is tech. There's what the technicians called operational technology. Basically, the tech on the lines and, all the equipment. What is missing there is the security. So we always talk about computers being hacked, servers being hacked. If our grid line is hacked, then we are doomed. So security needs to be moved to operational technology. AI, as is mentioned, is quite critical, and it needs to be incorporated in all our ecosystem. And just to spin something into the works, some of the things we do is financial services sector. So we develop solutions in that sector. And one key player is Nairobi Securities Exchange. So the work of Nairobi Securities Exchange is, it's a marketplace. If you do your studies across the world, there's a marketplace for power. As a region, we could create a marketplace whereby I could decide to buy my power at the daily price, rather than having a price being adjusted by the power companies at the end of the month. So through technology, we can do all this. We can exchange power between Ethiopia, Kenya, and the rest. Thank you.
Wait, but just before you let go of the microphone, you talked of the possibility of the grid being hacked. As it stands, how do I hack a power line?
You want to know how to hack it?
I mean, hacking 101. But I'm curious about...
So what happens is with the smart grid, you have IoT devices, which are internet enabled and connected to the network. And those devices probably balance the load, decide which side to get the power from and all that. So if those devices are connected to the internet, there's a possibility of them being hacked. And of course, there are switches. You can switch them off and on. And that's how the hacking happens. So hardware and software are interconnected.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. You wanted to speak to that as well?
Kindly allow me to chime in on that.
Please.
Because technology is the way to go. And in Kengen, we as well are at the forefront of that.
Please introduce yourself.
Sorry, my name is Rono Kibet. I'm the General Manager, Commercial Services, Kengen. And it's such a delightful day to be here in the heart of Olkaria, the heart of geothermal, and now the heart of sustainability to talk about something I'm really passionate about. So back to where I was. Our training programs. Remember, we run very sensitive machines in very dangerous environments. So augmented reality has become our new way of training our new employees so that we're able to walk them through emergency situations all in a virtual environment, okay? So that prepares them much better.
So they're wearing AR goggles during training.
Yes.
That's quite amazing.
And we are able to see what is really happening behind the turbine with the high pressure, high temperatures, and the high rotation that is happening. When you look at our dams, we need to do inspection of the walls of the dams all the way down, you know. A while back, you'd send in a swimmer, a diver to go all the way down. Today, we're using robots to go all the way down and do it more effectively, you know, so that the risk of crocodiles and all that is out and better quality of work is there. There's also a mention of IoT. Because of the vastness of geothermal, for example, you can see the very many assets that we have around here. Our concession is about 2.4 kilometers square. So without having real-time relay of information to a hub that is able to process and give you real-time information to enable you to decision-making, then it's not possible. So we've embraced Internet of Things, both in our terms of our well collection data, our power system, so that we are on top of anything that comes and we're able to predict what to maintain and how to be able to be more available in terms of providing power. Thank you.
Okay, my name's CS Ibrahim Kito, Director for Legal and Corporation Secretary, EPRA. So just to comment about what we are doing in terms of emerging issues. Of course, as the regulator, one of the things we do is that we bring all the players together. We ensure competitiveness in the sector, and of course, we ensure then that we are able to mainstream what we call sustainability in terms of the whole chain, in terms of energy systems. So we have a duty to regulate sustainably. And for this one, we are looking at sustaining by encouraging, emerging technologies, which of course will bring more efficiency, more responsiveness, and of course bringing as many players into the sector as much as possible. Of course, where there is competitiveness, chances are that you reduce the pricing in terms of access to power. So that is our duty. But I want to speak to something which I think one of the participants actually raised about what we are doing to make sure then that we have as many players as possible. And I like the aspect of the ambition to be able to procure power or get power as if you are buying tomatoes in the market. Recently, we've been having some discussions about the European Union system in terms of access to power and the way you are able to buy power through auctions. That means you can get it at, different pricing at every minute. The price is changing.
Individual consumer.
As an individual consumer, not necessarily through one player. And one of the things we've been very deliberate as a regulator is that we are aiming to have regulations which are able to bring as many players as possible. And I think we already have a starting point. We already have the open access regulations, which we are really working very hard to ensure then that they are operationalized. And, beyond the challenges in terms of infrastructure and the structural issues, they are in place so that then we can bring as many players into the market in terms of distribution, transmission, and of course, I think many of you may have heard about the captive power, which is now the key thing. So we've also gone very liberal in terms of enabling as many players to also do power generation for themselves and of course be able to supply to the off-taker.
All right, let me pause you there. Please don't lose your trail of thought. We just need to go into a quick break. Come back and you can continue to just speak to how you're also playing a role. We'll also hear from you and some of our other panelists as we bring the mic ground here to the Sustainable Energy Conference in Naivasha. We'll be right back. It's coming up to 8:30. We'll continue with the conversation in just a moment.
But we're back now in conversation with big players in the energy sector, especially around renewable energy. We're basically trying to figure out how do we reach our goals and our milestones as far as electrification is concerned, about clean energy in 2030. How do we all work as an energy community to make that a reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're now joined by two more stakeholders.
Yes.
We've got Amro Zakaria. Sorry, the sun is hitting you guys. It's beautiful, right? So to my extreme left, we've got Amro Zakaria, who is the co-founder and MEA director for Kyoto Network. And then, of course, we also have chairman of Kenya Power, Joy Brenda Masinde, joining us. Karibuni sana. We'll get to hear from you in just a minute, but I believe the microphone ilikuwa imefika
Yes.
Go ahead.
Now it's at the distribution.
It's at Ketraco. Imefika.
the mic is being
It's at Kenya Power.
The mic is being distributed. It's a distribution stage with Engineer Victor Sambula. Please introduce yourself and let's hear.
Thank you, Eric. My name is Victor Sambula Inganga. I am from Ketraco. My workstation is in Suswa, where we have the HVDC converter station. I am in charge of the converter station, and I want to talk a little bit about the converter station. It is a HVDC station that links Kenya and Ethiopia. It enables us to import power from Ethiopia to Kenya. Currently, we are doing about 200 megawatts from there. And it is important to note that this is purely green power, because most of the generation in Ethiopia is from hydro plants. So it's an investment that was done by the country. It is a very good investment because the distance between Kenya and Ethiopia is quite long. The line is about 1,050 kilometers, and the losses on this DC line is substantially very lower than we would have on an AC line. So it's an investment that ensures Kenya gets renewable power and also at a very fair price. Something else I want to talk about has been mentioned by the panelists here about how technology and cybersecurity should be incorporated into the grid. The grid is moving to the digital age, and we are digitizing most of our stations just to ensure that efficiency is there. Maintenance can be done online by people just accessing information from tablets, from their phone, and this means that we have to integrate the internet into our station. And this also exposes the grid now to hackers, and that's how cybersecurity becomes very important to be able to protect this infrastructure.
I wanted to ask this before we hear from Engineer Sugar as well as our other panelists is about this regional interconnectors, and some might argue it benefits external markets more than Kenyan consumers. Would you want to speak to that?
Yes, I would. Interconnectors are very key. They are very important because when the grid becomes bigger, it becomes more stable and more reliable. We are also able to access, I would say, cheaper power from our neighbors. So it doesn't really benefit only the external or other countries, but it benefits each and every country that is interconnected to each other. You find when we have deficits, another country can be able to support us. When they have deficits, we are able to support them. Also, in terms of strengthening the grid, when we are interconnected, when it is large, it becomes more strong, and we are less susceptible to outages, blackouts. So interconnections make the grid better.
Okay. Engineer Sambula, just before we move on, from how many countries do we buy power as Kenya?
As Kenya, currently we are connected to 3 countries. We are connected to Uganda, we are connected to Tanzania, and we are also connected to Ethiopia.
Okay.
So at the moment we are buying power from Ethiopia and from Uganda. The Tanzania link is currently under trial. So there are test runs that are currently ongoing. So we are exporting at the moment power to Tanzania, but it is under trial. Once the trial period ends, then firm contracts will be signed, and then we'll be able to have power exchange between the countries.
Okay, we just talked about it being, making it safer. I just remembered there was a major power outage a couple of months ago in Spain and Portugal because they're interconnected. Nyani iliguza waya, Portugal.
Spain wakakuwa in darkness.
Spain wakakuwa in darkness.
Yeah, when you're interconnected, you form one grid. So when one country is affected, you also support them, but sometimes they can pull you down also, or you can pull them down. So it becomes one grid. You're sharing resources, but also you're sharing the risks that also
So when we
come
say
with it.
not my monkey, not my business, in this case, it is not our monkey, but it is our business.
Exactly.
We'll talk about maybe ways to mitigate that in a little bit, but I wanted to get to know from all the stakeholders here, and I'll begin with Amra and Joy, because you've just joined us. When I buy 1,000 bob worth of units, or when I pay my power bill, I don't know about the players here, or I don't think about them. I know my bill is coming from Kenya Power, and that's it. How much goes to Kengen? How much goes to Ketraco? How much goes to fees and levies and EPRA? That is none of my business. So as a consumer, I want to know in your individual capacities what you're doing to make power cheaper for the end consumer. But I'll begin with Amra, with the work of the Kyoto Network, so that we begin with that, and then now we can move forward and see how we're making power cheaper for Kenyans.
Sure. Thank you, Miriam and Eric and Janet for hosting us. So Kyoto Network, we are a green energy project finance and development company based in the UK, but we have offices throughout the world and soon Kenya, especially after this fantastic event that was held here in Naivasha. So I just want to mention that what we heard over the past 2 days, that a lot of investments, they shy away from places where there is a lot of perceived risk. So particularly on that that factor of risk, it's usually relevant. So what used to be risky 5 years ago is no longer risky, or at least less risky. Places that used to be considered very safe now are considered risky, and I'll give a case on point for that. In Florida, the U.S., which is considered very safe, some of the coastal real estate properties are no longer insurable because of the risk of climate change. So therefore, if you can't get insurance as a big developer, then you have to write off that investment. So that becomes risky. And as a result of that, a lot of big funds now are focusing only on investments that they don't have the materiality risk, meaning they're not exposed to climate change and the climate risk. So ESG funds, currently as we speak, they have about $40 trillion on assets under management. 40 trillion. That 40 trillion can easily, at least a part of it, can easily go to places that used to be perceived as risky, but are no longer risky because of external developments. And an economy like Kenya can really tap into that. And the way to tap into it is, one, we have to have the policies aligned. So a lot of internal stakeholder dialogue to make sure that, do we have any legacy policies that maybe used to be good 10 years ago, but they're just here by inertia? We can get rid of them. What is causing friction for foreign companies and foreign investors to come in? And most importantly, not just like debt financing, but equity financing that shares the risk as well. And there is a lot of it currently. So just doing a little bit of alignment in terms of policy, capacity building is super important, because it's one of the pillars also that makes projects bankable, which is important. Another kind of point to that is in Pakistan, when they had the floods, they were allocated $10 billion, and it was already allocated. Nothing was dispersed of it. Why? Because internally they didn't have everything aligned. Right. So imagine you already have the Lego pieces. Right. All you need to do is just like you need to put it together so you can build something that people will decide to invest in it.
We'll speak to those, what that policy that enables that looks like. But now we can go through and figure out how to make power cheaper. And then we'll circle back to what that looks like and what the stakeholder engagement
collect on behalf of everybody else. And for us to keep the conversation going on, to keep the businesses going, then everyone has to get a little bit of the same. EPRA is a very big determinant of why power is where it is right now, because they are the ones with the global picture. As the regulator, they are the ones with the global picture, seeing what everybody needs, and then they make that determination. But one of the things that I want to just put across to Kenyans is to understand that as much as in today's life we view energy as a primary human right, everybody uses electricity, everybody needs electricity. The mindfulness that electricity is expensive has to return, because I think there is a certain casualness in assuming that
we're entitled to electricity.
We are so entitled to electricity, and we get to a place where you see people how we use electricity. For example, everything is plugged in. You want that one cup of tea, you boil the entire kettle. You want a second one, you boil the remaining kettle. As in, you don't think about how we consume power, and so your power bills are high because of even our own behavioral activities. Because even in my own house, when I got to a place, I realized, you know what, there's some habits that maybe if we changed would manage our power bills better. It started getting better when I started surcharging some non-tax-paying stakeholders in the house for their discrepancies. I found that things actually got better. So I think maybe as Kenya Power, one of the things we need to engage in is a conversation about how to use power more efficiently and how to be mindful about the cost of power. Because if we look at, for example, where we are around here, these steel pylons, exploring this steam that we are seeing, just producing this alone, when they give you digging one well, before you even get anything out of it, the investment that goes into it is several $1 million. So who's going to pay for that? So when we start thinking about, okay, I have this thing, I'm ready to use it, but can I use it mindfully? So it also costs me less, because I'll tell you, the ticket price may not go down, but you in your own house, in your own way, you can be more efficient so that you use it in a way that is affordable for you.
Madam Chairman, you're caught up into these things here. As Kenya Power, you'd like me to use as much power as possible so that I pay you as much as possible. But also you have this responsibility to teach me how best to use power. Now I can see why Kenya Power has not done that yet.
Right. And my other and my other pushback, there's that as well, which is if you can teach me, you know what, don't leave everything, all the lights on all the time, basics, right? And then I'll spend less power, that's fair. But then there's also internal efficiencies that could reduce the Kenya Power portion of the bill. But then again, that also goes against the fundamental want of Kenya Power to make money. So I see that you're in a very difficult
You know, the good thing with Kenya Power is that we are a public company and we are a listed company. For us to make money is basically improving efficiency. But we don't run for profit strictly, because the way EPRA has set the pricing, it's enough. So anything that I make over and above is what I save by reducing efficiencies. That's why the talk of reducing losses is such a big deal. Because for me, 1% loss is roughly 1 billion shillings. So if I'm able to cut my losses by 2%, that is 2 billion shillings in the bank. So what the director was talking, the engineer was talking about, when a line is too long and you lose some power, because I mean, it's like those things, when the water is running, there's some that splashes around. So when the power line is too long, what you lose, somebody has to pay for it somehow, somewhere. Now, EPRA caps it and says, you know what, you can't charge beyond this much. So we can't just lose everything. If you arrive with half a bucket, then I'm taking that hit. So there's that which Kenya Power can do. But members of the public need to be aware. Next year, we are going into tariff review. So EPRA has to look at the pricing all over again. Public participation is going to happen. We usually go to every single county as a team. So EPRA is leading, but all the sector players go in. Participate. Make your voice heard so that we are able to you are able to have a voice in the pricing. Last year, once EPRA sets the price, you pay the bills.
That's what it is. I'll get engineers' reactions, because we were with you previously, just to what's been said here. But just another final one, Joy, which is embracing, tech, which has come up quite a bit. Whether it's, I don't know, is it smart meters? Just embracing that, and how that can also play a role in reducing losses. But there's also something here about rebuilding public trust. So if you can speak to that, because you've broken it down well in terms of the different lenses that you have to wear, but how are you translating that into rebuilding public trust, and then also how you're embracing this tech to reduce losses? So those are the two questions I have for you.
Okay, we currently have a campaign. Let me start with the second one. It's easier. We currently have a campaign called Pamoja Tuanga, Tusichome brand. And the big idea is just acknowledging Kenya Power, we got a bad name. We got to fix that. That's one thing that we have admitted, that we've taken quite a gut punch in terms of our image. part of it justified. The company went through some turbulence, and my colleagues were demoralized. There was a lot of despondency, and so people got into a zone where it became like a free-for-all. But we have stabilized the company right now. Those who needed promoting have been promoted. Those who needed transiting have been transited. We've tried to stabilize the ship, make everybody comfortable. And we are saying, now that we've gone over that hump, can we now start doing our work more professionally? And that campaign is twofold. Those who do well, we are publicly vetting them. And we are saying, come, well done. They are getting gigagoats. They're called gigagoats. Once they do well and you've reduced your losses and your guys are efficient, you're responding to your calls on time, we are celebrating you. And then the guys who are not doing so well, there will be performance improvement programs. Now, these are things in government offices were not being done before, but the consequences now for not doing your job are going to start. The pressure is going to start to bear. Sorry, engineer, it's coming. And what that's going to do now is people are going to start taking personal responsibility for what they're supposed to do. That mentality of we're a public company, we're a government company, we're permanent and pensionable, there will be consequences to bear now. That culture change now is telling them, as long as we pull together, tutanga. Yeah. But whoever is not pulling together with us, there will be consequences. But now going to your other question, as a company, we also have to get to a place where we have to admit that these changes don't come easy. And the investment in the people and the investment to the public has also to be done. What you said, we have to talk more to our customers. We have to engage more. We have to help people understand why this is the case. But also policy. We've talked about it. The policies are very well, they're all out there. We have to come to a place where there is net metering, for example. So many guys have got solar here and there that we can get into business with, but technology is failing us. And so the technology, unfortunately, right now, the only barrier is cost. It exists. It's good technology. There's innovation. But we already hit over 10 million meters. If I decide I'm changing all my smart meters now to, all my meters now to smart meters, we've got maybe about 1 million that are smart. I say tomorrow we are going to do this thing. Each meter is going for what, 13,000? Do the math. So the cost right now is prohibitive. What engineer was talking about, smartening the grid. So I can tell how much is coming into a county, how much has been sold, how much was lost, how much has not been collected. All those things depend on technology. Right now, I have to depend on my meter readers. I have to depend on... But slowly, that thing is changing because we're getting to a place where even if I tell customers, there's some customers I tell, you buy your own smart meter, and they're like, you know what, I'm happy to. Because I don't want a guy knocking on my door every day telling me, can I read your meter? I will pay for the smart meter. Maybe that's a campaign we need to roll out. As many as are willing, let's do that. But getting the grid smarter, technology is the only thing that will solve this, especially in reducing the losses.
Right.
Because if you can have your power disconnected because you've not paid, but as soon as you pay, it's reconnected, there's nothing like a guy having to come, he went with my fuse, he did whatnot. All those things will have to become a thing of the past.
Okay. Right.
Many questions to ask because hatujamaliza swali ya the bill, right? But I like what you've given us, which is a lot of perspective. And you're right, like that's why we have all the stakeholders here. I want to go now to Ketraco, hear from them. Your bit of the cost of power, the transmission, the lines, right? How do we make it more efficient so that there's a few, 2-3 bob less per unit whenever I'm buying power?
Thank you once again, Mariam. So the first thing is look at Ethiopia, Kenya. Ethiopia, Kenya, we're injecting a lot of power from Ethiopia. And the rate at which we're getting that power compared to what we get locally is very cheap, because they already have the system set up there from the dam. That dam can produce a maximum of 50,000 megawatts. We have a capacity to get 2,000 megawatts at a very cheap cost. So the net effect of that is that at the end consumer level, the price of electricity will go down. Then secondly, I love something called PPPs, just like Donald Trump loves tariffs, okay? Tariffs, So I love PPP. Why? Because you find that in Ketraco and government, if we want to build these transmission lines, it's very expensive and we have to get the loans, right? And sometimes we borrow domestically, which is very expensive. So then a private company comes to partner with Ketraco. When they do that, they're telling you they're going to put the money to build this thing, and then they'll run it for you guys, operate it for maybe 20 to 30 years. Then after that, they bring it back to the government. Now, if you look at the difference between government doing that, Ketraco doing it single-handedly, as compared to a private company doing it through the PPP framework, then it's way cheaper. So then at the end of the road, the end consumer then gets a reduction in the cost of electricity, right? So that's an example of what Ketraco is doing. And apart from that, we also transmit based on, we have that arrangement in the energy players that we are focused on renewable energy. So we are transmitting power based on the renewables, which is, again, a cheaper option compared to the thermals. So that's a critical area that Ketraco is doing and that we are helping the Mwananchi with. And if you look at it, I'm impressed that so many Kenyans now know what Ketraco does. Back in maybe 2010, 2 years after Ketraco was formed, up to 2015, everyone was asking, who is Ketraco? What do you guys do? Yeah. But when I watch Fixing the Nation a lot, and every time I hear Mariam talk about Ketraco, and I smile. Like yesterday when you were talking to the Kenyan MD, I could hear you speak about Ketraco a lot. And that's music to my ears. It shows that we've done something. So we are trying to reduce the power, of course, from the renewables, from the PPPs, and other strategies. But I can also let my colleague, Engineer Sambula, also chime in.
As he continues, I'll just say, knowing Ketraco is a thing that has come the last few years for me, with, being in the industry and learning and reading. And I think a lot of people are getting to that point of knowledge, but there's still a lot more I think for a lot of people, it's KenGen and then Kenya Power. They don't know what happens in the middle, but we're getting there slowly. And it's a fairly...
Kwanza Eric.
Hey.
Is there a Eric representative here?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Cool. Yeah.
Okay, I also want to chip in on this, on what Ketraco is doing. Ketraco is doing grid expansion projects. Like, for instance, there are places that were not connected to the grid. An example, Garissa, where they were using diesel generators to supply the area. Ketraco did a line from Kindaruma, a generator, to Mwingi, then to Garissa. And the diesel generator was decommissioned. And power now from the grid is able to reach those areas. Also, something else that Ketraco is doing, the high voltage transmission lines, they are able to reduce losses. You find that historically, Kenyans were supplied by low voltage lines. When the voltage is low, then the losses are more. So that's why Ketraco comes in to do the large pylons so that we can evacuate more power with fewer losses, and this reduces the technical losses that the chair has indicated comes also, or has to be part of our bills. So when the losses go down, then it means also what the consumer will be paying will also be low. So this expansion of the grid is playing a really big role in reducing the technical losses and subsequently also the bills for the Kenyans.
I love that. And to be fair, we can notice it even from a consumer perspective. I may not know that, there's higher voltage lines or expansion of the grid or move, but I can tell that there's fewer blackouts. Yeah. That is something very, it's easy from a consumer perspective.
Yeah, thank you.
We have to go on a short break. Karibu. We have to go on a very short break, but we'll be right back. Hashtag is Fixing the Nation NTV. We're discussing renewable energy with players from the energy, of course, industry, and of course you as well. Tuliza Maswali on Instagram, on YouTube. We're live everywhere, and we'll be more than happy to answer with the people who know the answers to those questions.
We're back with our Micro Ground here at the Sustainable Energy Conference, the last day. And in fact, soon we'll be crossing over to the main plenary as the conversations continue. But we do have various stakeholders that we're speaking to. We were joined by Engineer Ishuga in the previous hour, and we just want to hear, I'm curious to hear from you. REREC has a very rural focus, and I'm wondering how that complements the big picture ambitions that we're hearing from some of the other stakeholders, whether it's Ketraco and KenGen, and how you can still have the rural focus complementing the bigger picture and still centering citizens' needs. How does that all tie together?
Great. Thank you. Again, I'm Engineer Freddy Sugar from REREC. I serve as a General Manager, Renewable Energy Research and Development. I'd like to say this, that REREC plays a very, very big role in terms of ensuring even the Kenyan workforce and Kenyan households still benefit from this very commercialized also resource as a service. Because when, of course, you hear about electricity and economic development, then the mind quickly switches to either commercial or industrial use. But this commercial industrial sector, they rely on human beings to be able to deliver. And therefore, we focus in ensuring that the communities who work in those spaces, also when they get back, they can be able to enjoy the spirit in which they have while at work. So, of course, through the conversation, we have talked about a number of things which I fully appreciate. The issue of innovation and technology coming to play into the very, very energy space. I'd like to just add that apart from access to electricity and what REREC does, we do much more, because when you just look at most of us where our backs are facing the spar, for me, I look at it in terms of low-grade heat, and it's a form of energy. When you look at our kitchens, there's a lot that is happening there that you will not imagine that without that energy, you will not serve that meal. And therefore, there's quite a lot that we do through the community services that we do within the villages, ensuring that those mamas have a better livelihoods by ensuring that they have cook stoves that are not polluting. Because for me, when I was growing up, my mother cooked purely on a 3-stone, and I used the koroboi, if you know it. So when the darkness comes, my notebook from school is written in blue, but at night it will only be black. But when power came, of course, when it's blue, it's blue. So I could be able even to enjoy the color of my book. So this one plays a very, very big role at a household level. And not just about that. Beyond electricity access, because for us, we have 2 mandates. Rural electrification part, we do medium voltage just beyond what KETRACO does, and low voltage network. But we are also operating beyond the grid in terms of electricity access. Beyond the grid means we are promoting and develop those decentralized systems, which gives opportunity at a much lower cost than would be when we had to fully extend the grid to those areas. Because at the time that we are in, we realize that much of the areas, especially those areas with sparse population, nucleated settlements, which are 200 kilometers apart, they still need to feel like Kenyans. And therefore, we go into those villages, set up a generation plant. Actually, REREC does the whole value chain. We set up a generation plant. We transmit at a medium voltage, and we distribute to those communities. Then invite Kenya Power to come and continue interacting with the customers, and of course maintain those systems. And that's what we do. Of course, even with the innovation and everything that has come on board, still we are faced with issues of resources, which requires increasingly innovative methods to be able to reach out by 2030. Somebody mentioned about PPPs. These are very, very good models. Even as we serve those communities, we interact with the private players who have set up mini-grids in those communities. And the communities are happy because they're able to charge their phones. Some of them are able to watch NTV because without electricity, clearly, you are not able to enjoy with the services that other Kenyans are enjoying too. Just to talk about the issues of tariff. For mini-grids and decentralized systems that REREC does, the despite the costs of investment in those areas, the tariff those communities enjoy is the same tariff those on grid enjoy. Yeah.
Oh, may I just chime into that?
Yeah.
Because now Kenyans also need to understand that we pull together in partnering to give people power.
Yes.
So there is an element of cross-subsidization because there are people who are so remote. For us to get power to them, it costs us more than the income you're generating from that community. But in the spirit of Udugu and us pulling together, there are those of us who have enjoyed power for a longer time and our grid is more established, who actually do cross-subsidize. So there's a little bit of what you're paying that you're helping your brother who's in Marsabit or in Majir, somewhere where the power is a lot more expensive than it is here. But unlike petrol, where you'd say you pay more there and us we are paying cheaper here, with power we all have the same tariff that goes around. It's just dependent on consumption.
Madam Chair, actually, now that you are here, there was a question that was posed earlier. That last mile connectivity is done at some stages by REREC and some stages by Kenya Power.
Yes.
Now, a customer who sits there and hears REREC saying, you don't pay a thing, will just bring power to your household. And then they also have dealt with Kenya Power, and Kenya Power in some instances have said, you need to pay for one, two or the other. How do I know whom to pay to?
You know, or who to go to.
So that I don't pay.
So that I don't pay, because that's the ideal situation.
Right. Like I said, Kenyans think that power is an
free.
entitlement.
It
it's just leteni moto.
It is.
No, but even the ones that you're saying is free, it is not free. There is somebody who's footing the bill. So if you find there's a program that is coming at no cost to the customer, you'll find that World Bank has picked the tab, or IMF has picked the tab, or a private investor has picked the tab. Somebody is picking the bill somewhere. And that's why you'd find some lines are able to be done with low cost to the customer. Some are done with a cost-sharing element. Like with most of the Kenya Power ones, you'd be able to pay for some of the material and the labor, but like the getting the lines in, that can be covered from Parliament. But most of them you find would be part of a bigger program that is funded by someone. Because there are those people whose priority it is to get power to the last mile. Now, who do you know? Most of that time, most of those projects are, for lack of a better word, it's ad hoc. When the money is available, then we put out the lines. When there's no money available, we'll just give you a quotation, and if you pay, we bring the power to you.
But I don't know, are we not entitled to power? Because you keep saying Kenyans are entitled to power, like it's not the truth.
No, you're entitled to be connected, but you have to pay for it. It's not a free service. It costs somebody to get it to you, and it costs somebody to maintain that line. And so that is something that you have to pay for. It's the same way every time you fuel your car, you pay the road levy that keeps the tarmac on the road so that you can keep enjoying the service.
Not to be argumentative, Madam Chairman, you're a lawyer. Every child in Kenya is entitled to free education. Doesn't mean that no one is paying the bill, but they're entitled to it. That's what we just mean.
Yeah.
We're entitled to have power. I'll pay.
Yeah, but the Bill of Rights is nothing that says that you're entitled to have power. So, but we are doing our best to get the power to you.
Okay.
Okay, I really like the discussions. Let me clarify. Firstly, borrowing from the provisions of the Constitution and, of course, the Energy Act. Actually, every Kenyan has a right to access to energy, so it's a statutory right. But like actually Chair is actually saying, there must be something to enable you do that. So that investment must be recouped and somebody must pay for it. And then I think until just the other day, I think there was a discussion that it's actually a right which should be actualized as we progress. But emergingly, and we've seen this in many jurisdictions, South Africa and even in Kenya, it is actually becoming a core right to everybody. But the only rider is that you must pay for it. But let me give you a comment in terms of the access to energy.
That's what taxes are for. That's what taxes are for. You pay for the electricity, as it comes, but especially from a connectivity perspective, I don't think this should be a personal burden on a home that I'm splitting costs with Kenya Power or REREC, or I'm having to pay for a cable. I think the power, that is the work of the national government, of county governments, of all the bodies represented here to figure out. and then when the meter goes ding ding, it's my time to pay.
Okay.
That's okay.
Let me give a reminder on that.
My taxpayer money is again what is funding all the rest.
Yeah, I must say that from a regulator's perspective, it's actually a balancing act. And actually, when you look at the provisions of the Energy Act, they say that the government of Kenya has a responsibility to create conducive environment for private investment and generally investment to the energy sector. So, of course, that comes with money. So, where is the parting shot? Somebody must pay for it. I think that one is given. But the government has an obligation to make sure that the infrastructure and the investment is into place. And that takes us to the issue of even how do you come up in terms of identifying the tariff applicable. So one of the things a regulator will do world over is that you have to balance both interest for private investment and, of course, the interest of the public. These are would be consumers. And it's actually what we call balancing the energy trilemma: affordability, sustainability, and then, of course, ensuring that the sector is able to progress. So like as actually Chair was actually saying, one of the things which gets into identification and, of course, determining the tariff is that firstly you must evaluate the investment which has gone into the, availing the power. The other thing is, of course, and which the regulator is actually looking at closely recently, is that we are also asking ourselves the hard questions. Do we have inefficiencies which can be dealt with across the whole energy chain? That means from the generator, transmitter, and even the distributor.
From the levies and taxes as well?
Yeah, we'll progress. I will be able to address that. So one of the concerns anybody will have is that how do we address even some of the things we are talking about called the supply chain inefficiencies? Because I think we spoke about the technical losses and the sort. But there's also the elephant in the room, which is called the supply chain inefficiencies. And I actually liked what Chair was actually said, that they're having a discussion surrounding liberalizing the purchase and who can purchase the meters. Actually, that discussion is happening even at the regulators level. And one of the questions we're actually asking ourselves is it a case that the consumer should be left to get meters for as long as they're able to fit the bill and the specifications required of the person who is connecting? So that is the discussion, and I think it's a discussion which is at the core of energy access. For example, I'll say that if I'm a consumer and I'm able to get a meter at a cheaper cost, for as long as it's able to meet the specifications which have been defined by the person supplying the power and, of course, with cables, then there's nothing preventing me from doing that. And I'm very excited to hear that actually even at the off-takers, point, that's a discussion they're also progressing. But speaking to some of the other things the regulator is actually looking at, we are very keen in terms of having regulations which are introducing competition and opening the sector. And like the fact that you spoke about the mini-grid. So we've been very key in terms of having mini-grid regulations and, of course, in terms of licensing, in addition to captive power, because we also appreciate that it's not everybody will be able to buy power from the main grid. And maybe some people you have to give them choices. So we are also trying to do that, but of course sustainably. The aspect of the PPPs, actually the regulator is actually now at the forefront of ensuring then that public-private partnerships are able to be applied across the whole chain. There's a lot of discussion between the regulator, the PPP directorate, and even with KETRACO in terms of how we can be able to see that discussion through actually at advanced stages, because we really appreciate that the public sector, the private sector has a big role in terms of, introducing that competitiveness. But there's also that elephant in the room, which I know everybody will be excited to hear about, that yes, we are talking about PPPs, but can we be able to procure PPPs competitively and, of course, using the right appropriate procurement methods so that then we can be able to get optimal results. And, of course, optimal results means getting power which is cheap, transmitting it cheap
and efficiently. I think what you've mentioned. The second bit is the transparency in the procurement process. I guess that's the big issue. We just have about 5 minutes before we cross over into the main plenary, where the conversations begin. But let's come to Ronald from KenGen. You also have an issue to say about, how much the cost of power is and all those other factors as you conclude.
Yeah, thank you, Latif. It's surprising. We're talking about all the other body parts, but you forgot the most fundamental, the heart. But I'm happy that there was no interest on the heart. That means the heart is working well. So we are curing other issues.
Or we don't know. Or we don't know if the open. No.
I remind you, I'm your host.
You just pulled rank.
Guys, if you see me in the water,
Nice one.
it's that gentleman over there.
Reminded that there's a regulator.
Oh, fantastic.
It's good for us to understand how the energy sector has evolved, okay? Our forefathers in the energy sector were caught up with a dilemma. Should we have power, no power, or expensive power? They chose a bit of expensive power to solve the problem. Soon after we brought in the thermals, our immediate acceleration was towards, can we displace these thermals with our renewable capacity? And that's what they did so well. Now, today our dilemma is these renewables have a lot of intermittencies. So it causes a lot of grid instabilities. And that's why today batteries are born. So today our new front line is, how soon can we integrate the batteries?
Yeah.
So this has been an evolution. And as the chairman said, it's not a wand that will just strike and suddenly the cost of power has gone down. If you graph the cost of power, it's actually going down. It's steadily going down. And while we invested in generation, there was a lot of investment into transmission. There was a lot of investment into distribution and last mile. GDC's main role was to go out to the other geothermal fields, explore, make it, de-risk it, and invite private and public players like KenGen to come and participate in the full production. So the government was keen on accelerating geothermal development. Now, that has happened. But again, KenGen has looked at it, that if an industry is located in industrial area, by the time I push my affordable power all the way there are costs that come with it. There's a transmission cost, there's a distribution cost, and it's a genuine investment that needs to be paid for. So we thought of, why invite these industries into where power is produced? Just the way you have farm to plate.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm happy to tell you where you are today is an industrial park. It's a special economic zone. And we're inviting these industries to come here because we found more value in our green electrons going into production and manufacturing, such that you come up with a premium product, 100% green, fetching a premium market at a very competitive price that matches international standards. So we are able to create more jobs, spur and catalyze our economy, as well as providing this same power to the grid at a much more subsidized cost. Right. Remember, when you build a transmission line, when you build a power plant and you utilize it only 50%, you still have to bear the cost. Yeah. But if I'm able to model and have it utilized 80, 90%, I'm spreading my cost over more electrons. Yep. So the net effect is that it goes down. So Latif, a lot is going into this, and there are great minds behind all this. And I'm happy with the synergy that we all have, all the way to REREC. You know, we are convened by the ministry. We have something called the Least Cost Power Development Plan that shapes everybody's strategy to where are we going as a country. And now the fruits are coming. So Kenyans just need to be a bit patient with us, and they'll be able to see the results.
That's a very, very hopeful and forward-looking way to actually conclude this conversation.
Sorry, Latif. This pond is an innovation.
Tell us about
initially, the hot water from the having been, because our turbines run on steam, so we separate the fluid so that the hot water goes back into the well. So we re-inject all the water back to the reservoir. But a brilliant mind said, why not? Before we re-inject it, because this is water flowing into the well, can we just have a recreation facility here? Right. And this is what we have. Now, if you look at the KenGen people, they're slightly younger than their age because of this pond. It has therapeutic value, it has sulfur. So I invite all of you to take a dip and get younger.
Fountain of youth, is that what you're saying?
This is it, eh? Oh, right. Beautiful. Thank you very much, Rono, for that. And we've got to cross over now to the conference because it's just beginning, and we know Engineer Freddie Sugar is actually on that next panel. So we'll be watching you shortly, and we'll be joining you there as well. So we've been having this conversation here with the various stakeholders in the energy value chain, from the generators to the distributors, to the last the transmitters, to the last mile. No, actually, we start with the regulator. From the regulator to the only one we didn't have here is the GDC. But in the next conversation, we'll have them. You know, all the way, even into the private sector and the consumers. We've all been here having this conversation. It's about sustainable energy and renewable energy. As a conference that's been happening here in Naivasha, it's ongoing. We are crossing over there for the next conversation. Fixing the Nation will be back on Monday. We don't know where we'll be. Maybe we'll be, who knows? Yeah.
We've been invited to Siaya.
You know, we could be going to Siaya. We don't know.
Madam Chair, you invited us where? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You may see us next time looking like,
Mashujaa in
teenagers.
Kitui.
Or Mashujaa Day in Kitui as well.
There's a bidding.
Yes, there's a
Love
bidding
it.
is going on. See you on Monday, everybody. Cheers.
Thank you.